how exciting it is to have the Word of God. As you read it, God's light shines into you, and He communicates to you through the Word of God. And then you shine to others in this dark world. That's just what happened during the Middle Ages. During this dark time, there was these little shining stars that got really big, because when a star shines, it lights up the sky. And these guys were lighting up the sky at that time in the Middle Ages, at least in the spiritual realm. Jon Huss, the light of Bohemia. We learned about Peter Waldo, light in France. We learned about John Wycliffe, the morning light of the morning star of the Reformation. And now we're going to learn about the light in Bohemia, Jon Huss. He was a priest. He was born in 1370 in the Middle Ages. He was a poor goose farmer before, and he decided, maybe I should go to school if I have an opportunity to become a priest. Not that he was any religious sense, but he just thought he'd have a better life if he was a priest. But as he went in the priesthood, he started studying the Bible in Prague with the Germans and Bohemians, and he started loving it. And he started being lit up. And he came to know God through Jesus Christ by faith. And so then Jon Huss, he decided to study further, and he got a hold of some of Wycliffe's teachings. He may have traveled to England, and he read them in English, as though he did not read English in the beginning. So he had to study English in order to read the English part that John Wycliffe wrote. And he read it about his teachings. And he saw that his teachings were pretty right on and compared to the Bible. And he thought, man, it's crazy. And he was a priest. And so he looked at that time. It was that they had 3 popes, and all 3 of them were not very moral acting at all. In fact, they were extremely wealthy, and the people were extremely poor, and they were imposing heavy taxes on Bohemia. In fact, the church owned 1/2 of Bohemia. And so the people didn't really care for these popes that much in the first place, but they trusted they had no other way of knowing God, although we know the Waldensians had come through, and so had earlier. We know what happened in Bohemia with Methodius and Cyril. They had brought the gospel there. So it's pretty cool, all these things that were happening in Bohemia, and now we have a priest getting saved, knowing God. And so Jon Huss took at these teachings, and he couldn't help. His heart was like broken. He goes, I need to share these. So he started sharing this with the other priests there. You see, he started just going around with the people and sharing the gospel with the people as a priest. He became a priest at a small church there called the Bethlehem Church. And he preached there, and the people loved him. They're Bohemian, the Bohemians came in. He became like a Bohemian national figure. They loved him so much. And so Jon Huss, he went with Wycliffe's teachings, and they found out that he was teaching about the Bible. And they found out that he was teaching against these same things that Wycliffe was teaching against that were not in the Bible. And so, guess what happened? He was excommunicated. He was considered a heretic, and he was not allowed to speak. And they were going to take away his priesthood. In doing that, they took away his priesthood, but he still taught the Bible in his little church there, and they loved him. He wanted to tell the Catholic Church about the teachings, and he wanted to explain it to them, and he wanted to go to the Pope and tell them and show them the Bible, but they didn't let him. They arrested him. In fact, the Holy Roman Emperor at that time, he was definitely trying to support the popes, and so he said, well, I will give you safe papers so that you can get where they're calling you for your trial. And so the journey to the from where the emperor was sending him for his trial there was terrible. And they said, basically said, we'll get there, but we're not going to really care if you come back or not. They didn't treat him fairly at all. And then he was put in prison for months, a terrible prison. He got so sick, extremely sick, that he almost died. And then he was put on trial. He was not allowed to speak at all at the trial. He only could recant his teachings, and he could not reject his faith. So of course he could not recant. Recant means to reject what you believe in. And so he was sentenced, and Jon Huss was burned at the stake. But while he was burning, he was singing hymns. You believe that? And then what happened? It was reported back to the people of Bohemia. It was reported back to them what had happened to their beloved priest. The Bohemians were very angry. In fact, they joined together, and they call the Hussites, and they joined together. And as they joined together, they formed a military. See, Jon Huss was their patriot, their national figure. They gathered the army, and it was very small in size compared to the Holy Roman Empire. But surprisingly to everyone, even historians cannot believe as they look back that they won. Look it up in history. They won. They were the first country, the first group of people that was let free of the ties of the Roman Catholic Church. The Bohemians. The more Bohemians came, more of them got saved. Jon Huss, truly a light in Bohemia, and he was an inspiration for all the further reformers that would come. All these other priests, a long line of priests that all began to see that some things weren't right in the church. Wow. It's so sweet to learn about these martyrs, these sweet saints, these lights. And people came to know Jesus, and we'll see them all when we get to heaven. And it's going to be a grand time.